Okay, so I'm going to look um, against my better judgment at the Tracy K. Smith poem, Letter to a Photojournalist Going In. And when I say um, against my better judgment, it's because, when I'm looking at, I love teaching poetry, as you know, but I'm looking at poems like to prepare for the Leaving Cert. I kind of, I suppose I go for poems that are relatively easy to break down, and this ain't it. So it's a poem of two halves. The first half is just really presents evidence of Smith's ability to use language to craft imagery and to bring us into a world that is not our own. In the particular case, it's the world of the photojournalist. And what that is, a photojournalist is a person who, voluntarily goes into places of conflict and voluntarily goes to see and witness, the worst um, behavior that humanity is capable of. Um, and that's all evoked really powerfully in the first half. And then the second half becomes typically for Smith much much more philosophical and therefore more difficult. So let's have a quick look at the first kind of 20 lines or so of the poem. First of all, again, note something, a very simple thing to be aware of with this poet. She crafts really clever and engaging opening lines. You go to the pain is about as good an opening line as you're going to get. It's monosyllabic, simple. Now, if you're asked about the appeal of her poetry, if the question is that simple, just talk about her ability to craft those opening lines that draws in. And you go to the pain. 5 words, 5 syllables, words of one syllable. That's what monosyllabic ironically means. The word monosyllabic means words of one syllable, um, or one syllable. But that's really dramatic, isn't it? It's very. And again, that word dramatic was used. I think it was in relation to Platt's poetry last year. So there's drama there. You go to the pain, which is a weird thing to do, isn't it? Surely we normally run away from the pain. So she's thinking about the character of somebody who does this job. City after city, borders where they peer into your eyes as if to erase you. It's an interesting little simile, isn't it? Kind of capturing something about the fear that you would feel, the experience of being threatened, always in danger of losing your life when you come into contact with people who are, involved in war. You go by bus or truck days at a time, just taking it when they throw you in a room or kick you at your guts. The imagery is visual. There's that, haptic sense there, the violence, which has become almost normalized for this person, that they would just go out into danger, traveling whatever way they can to get where they need to go, accepting the suffering that goes along with the job, taking it when a strong fist hammers person after person a little deeper into the ground. I mean, that's about as visual an image as you can get, isn't it? Really impactful line. A strong fist hammering person after person. The repetition of person there again, just emphasizing the points, the unrelenting, pitiless quality of human cruelty and hammering people into the ground. And she says person, she individualizes the victims there. But the photojournalist goes out into that. Who the hell wants to go and see that? Who the hell wants to put themselves in a position where they're going to be kicked in the gut, thrown into a prison cell, looked at by people who want to erase them, witness people being hammered into the ground? Well, this is what the photojournalist does. The photojournalist goes out into that world. It's a strange, vocation. Your camera blinks, soldiers smoking between rounds. Again, you can see that, can't you? Between rounds, when we think of rounds, maybe it's an Irish thing, you think of socializing and being happy, but she means rounds as in shooting. The relaxation of the smokers, of the soldiers smoking before they go out and start killing again. The best image in the poem, bodies blown open like curtains, it's shocking. It's a simile. It's vivid. It's visual. It is visceral. And there's 3 V's for you. It shouldn't work blown open like curtains, but you get it. You get the chasm in the body. You know that you can see the physical gap where the body has been hit by bullets or hit by some sort of explosive and it's just opened and rended. So it's a really, really, really striking line. And if I was doing this poem, I'd learn that quote just as evidence of her very inventive, imaginative, creative style. Like she's trying to capture the reality of life for a photojournalist, and she does it really well here. In the neighborhoods, boys brandish plastic guns with TV bravado. It's almost as if there's a surreal element to it. Men ask you to look at them in your face and say what's right. So again, the tension, the danger of the existence. At night you sleep, playing it all back in reverse. The dance of the wind in a valley of dirt, very visual. Rags and tools, all the junk that rises up, resurrected and then disappears into newly formed windows and walls. The enjambment between the stanzas there, creating a real kind of narrative flow in the poem. People close their mouths and run backwards out of frame, so the image of constantly looking through the camera. And then you have the break. So for me, I said it's a poem of two halves. And for me, that's the end of the first half of the poem. And I think if she had just written that, it'd be a tremendously interesting poem. Just down as far as the word frame. Because it's like it's a tribute to the photojournalist going in. Sorry, I should have mentioned this at the start. Going in means going into danger. Like volunteering to go into, a conflict zone, to experience the fear and the terror and the trauma, simply so you can get the photograph, so like you can attest to it. And on its own, the poem down as far as I said 20 lines. I think I was wrong. Two, four. Sorry, count the couplets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry. So we've got 13 lines there. Sorry, 15 lines. Wasn't far off. So that first 15 lines on their own, you could just in the exam write about those. Just how this is something that the poet is very good at. If you look at Ghazal or The Greatest Personal Privation, or even poems like Joy and It's Not, those poems where she kind of seems to be able to look at the world from other people's perspectives. So she's really thinking about the world as experienced by the photojournalist in the same way as she thinks about the world as experienced by her dad in It's Not and her mother in Joy and the slave narrators of The Greatest Personal Privation and in Ghazal. So that's something that's notable about her poetry. It connects the poems together. Her ability to do that in an interesting way. And of course, when she does that and then we read her poems, she's opening the world and the experiences of others for us, the readers. And again, that's a value and a merit in her poetry or to reading her poetry. So all that is really, really good. But the poem then gets really difficult in the second half because it becomes less descriptive and more philosophical and thoughtful. And I want to use that word again because the more I think about Tracy K. Smith, so I'm just going to do that again. The more I think about Tracy K. Smith, the more I think of that term philosophical. And I said it in the video I recorded just before this one on the universe's house party, that philosophy is like, it's asking questions, but not necessarily thinking that you have to find answers. And often with philosophy, you're not really looking for answers, you're just asking the questions. And that's hard. That's why people hate philosophy. That's why a lot of people fucking hate philosophers, because it's intangible, it's difficult, it's hard to pin down. It's that word I used in the previous poem, mercurial. But in this poem, she's really thinking. Sorry, the second half of this poem, I think what she's drilling down into is what gives life meaning. And the core of the second half of the poem, if I was preparing this poem, is yeah. I'm going to go to the last line. Yeah, there. This line here. Sometimes I think you're right, wanting to lose. Sorry. Sometimes I think you're right, wanting to lose everything and wander like a blind king. So good. You know, I always say it, don't I? I'm just in awe of good. I'm not a good. I can't write, but I asked me kids. I was having a bit of crack with the 10-year-old earlier on. I said, "You're addicted to that fucking iPad," and she goes, "You're addicted to books." It wasn't quite the comeback she was looking for, and I said, "I don't mind if you get addicted to books, but I'm just constantly." I went into Hodges Vegas yesterday and spent, I don't know how long I spent in there, and spent too much money as well. I'm just in awe of good writers, because it's like the guy who loves football because he can't play it himself. But that's a great line. And I think what the second half of this poem is about is that exact thing there. That idea of most of us live our lives in an orthodox way. We live our lives, looking for safety, looking for security, running away from danger. And there must be something attractive about running towards danger. Now, it's like a blind king. And that great example of, again, her kind of, I've used this word whimsical sometimes to describe Tracy K. Smith, like playful, like deliberately playful, with a sense of humor. Like the king is like, noble and strong and admirable and awe inspiring, but the blind king is vulnerable and um its power is limited. And it's like this image of a person voluntarily running towards danger, like it's both noble and really ridiculous. And that's, sometimes she says, she wants to do that. I think we all do, don't we? Sometimes we want to forget about security. We want to forget about living the safe life. We want to just let fucking loose and experience some of the danger that life has to offer. And that's just, she's not suggesting that we should do that. She's just talking about the different experiences of life and how, attractive in one way and yet utterly crazy in another way the life choices of the photojournalist going in are. So it begins the second half with, "Up late, your voice fits my ear like a secret." It's directly speaking to the subject of the poem. Your voice fits my ear like a secret. It's another really striking simile. I'm not quite sure what it means, and I think that's the whole point. A secret is something that is difficult to decipher, difficult to understand, difficult to grasp. And I think that's what she's thinking about, like the idea of trying to grasp life as experienced by other people. It's to look at life from the perspective of somebody else is difficult, and that's what the simile like a secret means, I think. But who can hear two things at once? So how can we experience our lives and also see it through the lives of others, through the eyes of others? Errant stars flare, shatter. It's a very, very striking image. It's reminiscent of the universe as a house party. What does it mean? I don't know. It's got to do with, I think, images of chaos, images of destruction. A whistle, so we have that onomatopoeia of whistle. The indescribable thud of an error spilling its matter into the night. So there's images there of artillery fire. You have the onomatopoeia again of the whistle and thud. So the sound of the shell coming through the air, breaking the sound barrier, and then the impact of it, and then maybe that's what the errant star is, the explosion, error spilling matter into the night, like the what does it refer to? Humanity's capacity for destruction, is spilling matter, like destroying, you know, um, structures, causing chaos. Who can say the word love where everything pushes back with the promise? And this is really fantastic. A little bit of enjambment there. And again, it's a rhetorical question. When I say again, there are rhetorical questions in Universe's House Party. Who can say the word love when everything pushes back with the promise to grind itself into dust? And that is, it's a really brilliant moment in the poem. Poet is thinking about the difference, and again, there's connections between this and other poems. The difference between the world as we like to think it is and the world as it actually is. So grinding into dust. That's a reference to death. That's the reference to the finite nature of life. The it's the fact that everything comes to an end. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. It's definitely a biblical illusion. The image of grinding itself to dust, like the unrelenting quality of almost like the machinery of time. But then this um, concept of love, love is pushed back. She's thinking of the world and she's thinking of the concept of love and of meaning. But it's difficult to focus on it when you think about all of the destruction, all of the cruelty that exists in the world. So this is where her mind is going now, having thought about the experience of the photojournalist going in. Now she's thinking about the meaning of life and the reality of life and how difficult it is to maintain this kind of positivity. Who can think of love when really are all around us everything is ground into dust? Everywhere there is destruction. And those questions continue. And as I said, philosophical means asking questions. And what if there's no dignity to do what we do? None at all. If our work, what you see, what I say, is nothing but our way to kid ourselves we might last. And, I'm thinking about Yeats there in Sailing to Byzantium. I'm thinking about the idea of the meaning of life. She's asking, like, what is the purpose of what we do? She's a poet, she's a writer. What am I? I suppose if I was to say one thing I am, I'm a dad. That's first and foremost. An Egypt, second. Lots of people see themselves, their identity through what they do, like the doctor, the engineer, whatever it is, the social worker, the teacher. That those things give their life meaning. But she's asking the question: is that all really a joke? And she uses that colloquial phrase, like we kid ourselves that our work has meaning, that our work gives our life meaning. But maybe it's all just a joke, that, ultimately we're all going to be ground to dust and nothing lasts. So it's really, really, really challenging. And this is what thinking about the experience of the photojournalist going in has led her to. It's led her to think about the meaning of life. And she doesn't have answers. That's why these are rhetorical questions. And this section of the poem ends with another rhetorical question. If trust is just, and again, the playful, whimsical rhyming of trust and just, if trust is just another human trick, will lick its lips and laugh as it backs away. It's a really, really, really vivid image, isn't it? Some con man, some, grifter, salivating and laughing at our stupidity. That we think there's security in the way we live our lives, that we think there's meaning in the way we live our lives, but ultimately there isn't. And that's then what leads her to, sometimes I think you're right, and for me this is the most important line in the poem, as I already said, wanting to lose everything and wander like a blind king, wanting to squeeze a lifetime between your hands and press it into a single flimsy frame. So that's the shot, like getting that shot will give life meaning. Will you take it to your lips like the body of a woman, something to love in passing, or set it down freely? Set it down free finally of the camera, which we all know is just a hollow box mechanized to obey. Sometimes I want my heart to beat like yours. Isn't that a great line? I'll come back to those lines in a second. Sometimes I want my heart to beat like yours. From the outside in, a locker stuffed with faces that refuse to be named, for time to land at my feet like a grenade. Boom. What a line that is. That the moment that a grenade lands at your feet, that's it. And that's the moment you're most alive, because that's the moment you're going to die. And it's that idea of wanting to feel alive. And that's where she kind of understands why this photojournalist goes in and experiences all those terrors that are described in the first half of the poem, because that makes them feel alive. And when she's talking about wanting to squeeze a lifetime between your hands, like in a flimsy frame, when she's talking about like putting it down and taking but she says, it to your lips like the body of a woman, very sensual image. She's talking about experiencing life, grasping life, living life, not just through the lens of a camera, but through experience, through the exposure to the reality, the thrilling reality, but dangerous reality of the world. So whoever this photojournalist going in is, whether it's somebody she actually knows or somebody she's aware of through media, she's in awe of them. She's trying to look at them and understand their experience, and she finds that difficult. It's like a secret whispered into your ear, because it's very hard to hear two things at once. But thinking about the choices made by that person, thinking about the dichotomy, the difference between their choices and her choices and the way she chooses to live her life, leads her to think about, big ticket issues such as, the meaning of life, such as the finite nature of life, such as mortality, such as what is reality. What is reality? What gives meaning to life? And I think in that sense, it's a really, really fascinating poem. But again, I'd say what I said at the start. I think it's a tough poem. Now, if you can reach into that poem and take out things that you think are interesting, for me, if I'm learning quotes in this poem, I'm certainly starting off with the first one, and I already explained why I think that's a great quote to learn. I think this is a very, very visual image. I think that's a great example of simile. I think this is a difficult line, but it captures um, um, the conflict within the poem, the struggle, the philosophical questions. Who can say a word like love when everything, repetition of everything pushes back with the promise to grind itself into dust? But I think this is the most important. I think that's number 6, is it? Sorry, just go back one. So that's 4. Number 5. I think this is the most important quote. I'm not suggesting you learn 5 or 6 quotes in this poem. I'm saying all of these quotes are quotes I can see how, if you were writing about Smith, you could make interesting points about her style or about her choice of, about her thematic concerns. And then, of course, you'd have to have a go at learning that, wouldn't you? You know, to land for time. Sorry, I never. For time to land at my feet like a grenade. That's a great line, isn't it? Because it's just captures a moment and a feeling in a visceral and powerful way. So that's To a Photojournalist Going In by Tracy K. Smith. My thoughts on it. Sorry if they were rambling. I like poetry. I like Tracy K. Smith. Thank you.